Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you'd like to submit a story, feel free to do so in the comments down below or send it to my email. Alright, let's dive into today's story. You know that feeling when you're totally sure about someone, like they've got their whole life together and you secretly envy them? That's how I felt about my neighbor, Dr. Adrian Cole. Adrian was bald, with these unsettling pale blue eyes that could pin you in place if he looked at you too long. The guy oozed charisma. He was smart, rich, and a doctor on top of it. People adored him. Even the way he walked, confident, polite, always smiling, made it impossible to suspect anything dark about him. But Adrian wasn't just a doctor. In our small town, he was a symbol of success. He donated to local charities, sponsored school events, and hosted neighborhood barbecues every summer. He never hesitated to help anyone in need. His wife, Mara, was the perfect match for him. Beautiful, gracious, kind. She had this shiny, expensive wedding ring, a big diamond surrounded by tiny emeralds that always caught the light when she waved at you from across the street. Their kids, Noah and Lily, were polite and well-behaved, the kind of kids you'd use as examples when telling your own children how to act. Then, a few weeks ago, everything changed. Mara and the kids vanished. No goodbye, no luggage, no late-night argument heard through the walls. Just gone, like smoke in the wind. At first, everyone assumed they'd gone on a trip or there was some kind of family emergency. But days turned into weeks, and the whispering started. Had she left him? Was their perfect life just a show? Was there trouble behind that flawless front door? People talked, but no one could imagine Adrian doing anything wrong. Adrian played the grieving husband and father like a professional actor. He went on local news, eyes glossy with tears, pleading for his family to come home. "Mara, if you can see this, please, I love you. Please come back," he said, voice cracking at all the right moments. The town ate it up. But when the cameras weren't on him, he was different. I'd see him mowing the lawn with his earbuds in, smiling at neighbors, waving like nothing had happened. I'd catch him at the mailbox making jokes, chatting about sports, the weather, anything but his missing family. It was off. I tried to tell myself he was just good at hiding pain. Not everyone wears their emotions on their sleeves. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. But my gut wouldn't shut up. And as it turned out, my gut was right. It started with my house falling apart. One night, I had just settled in to watch a movie when I heard this horrible gurgling noise from the pipes. Before I could even get up, water exploded out of the kitchen sink, blasting the faucet like a busted fire hydrant. I sprinted to the basement and shut off the main valve, but it was too late. Water flooded the downstairs. The floors were soaked, water seeping into the walls, sneaking into electrical outlets. The air smelled like wet drywall and metal. I called an emergency plumber, but they told me it would take days to fix. The fans, the dehumidifiers, the mess, it made the downstairs unlivable. My bedroom upstairs was technically fine, but the damp smell and constant noise from the equipment made it impossible to sleep. That's when Adrian appeared. He caught me outside as I was dragging a heavy trash bag of clothes to my car. "What's going on?" he asked, leaning casually on the fence between our yards. "Plumbing disaster," I said, gesturing at the chaos inside. "I'll probably have to crash at a hotel for a few days." "Nonsense," he said, with that easy smile. Stay with me. I've got plenty of space. Besides, I wouldn't want you sleeping in a soggy house." I hesitated. The whole missing family thing clung to the back of my mind like a shadow. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I don't want to impose." "It's no trouble at all," he assured me. "Honestly, you'd be doing me a favor. The house feels too empty these days." That night, I packed a bag and headed over to Adrian's house. His house was everything you'd expect from a successful doctor. High ceilings, sleek furniture, spotless floors. Not a toy, sock, or random object out of place. Every room looked like it had been staged for a magazine shoot. But there was something off, something clinical. It smelled faintly like strong cleaning chemicals. Not just the usual "I mopped earlier" smell. More like someone had been scrubbing and bleaching every inch of the place over and over. "You're welcome to sleep in the attic," he said, leading me up the stairs. "It's the only room I've got set up right now. I don't use it much, but it's cozy." The attic was surprisingly livable. A bed with fresh sheets, a small desk, a mini fridge humming softly. Shelves lined with old books and boxes. It had this slightly cluttered, comfortable feel, like someone had tried to make it homey. But the door was strange. It was a sliding door, heavy, with a thick metal lock bolted into it. Not a regular bedroom lock, a serious keep something in or out kind of lock. I ran my fingers over the cold metal. "Why does the attic door lock like this?" I joked, trying to keep my tone light. Adrian shrugged. "Came with the house. Previous owner was paranoid, I guess." He laughed, but his eyes didn't quite match the smile. After showing me around, he headed downstairs. "I hope you're hungry," he called up. "I'm making a feast." I sat on the bed, taking in the room, trying to shake off the weird feeling gnawing at my spine. Maybe it was just the strangeness of staying in someone else's house. Maybe it was the lock. Maybe it was him. Either way, I pushed it aside and headed downstairs when he called me for dinner. The smell hit me halfway down the stairs, savory, rich, mouth-watering. When I walked into the dining room, I stopped in my tracks. The table was loaded with food, steaming bowls of soup, platters of roasted meat with a dark, glossy glaze, roasted vegetables, salads, bread. It looks like something out of a holiday commercial. "Wow," I said, taking a seat. "You really didn't have to go all out." "Cooking helps me cope," Adrian said, waving it off, setting down a dish. "Besides, it's nice to have company for dinner again." The soup was silky and fragrant, thick with herbs and spices. The meat practically melted in my mouth, tender, rich, with this deep, almost smoky flavor that made me want more with every bite. "This is incredible," I said between mouthfuls. "What kind of meat is this?" "Oh, just a mix of things," he said casually, taking a sip of wine. "Family recipes, handed down for generations." I didn't think twice. The food was too good to question. We talked as we ate, about work, the neighborhood, random stories from our lives. Adrian was a natural conversationalist, pulling me along from topic to topic, making me laugh. For a while I forgot all about his missing family, and the locked attic door, and the smell of bleach. "This is amazing," I said, raising my glass. "Thanks for sharing this with me, really." "The pleasure is all mine," he said, eyes gleaming in the soft light as he clinked his glass against mine. After dinner, I tried to help clean up, but he waved me away. He moved through the kitchen with the precision of a surgeon, hands working quickly, scrubbing every dish until it gleamed, every counter wiped down, every trace of dinner erased. I headed back up to the attic. The room felt cozy, but something was wrong beneath the surface. The bed was freshly made. The mini-fridge was stocked. Even the books on the shelves were arranged like they were meant to be seen, not used. It felt less like an unused attic and more like a room someone had prepared specifically for me. As I walked toward the bed, my foot caught on something. I stumbled, nearly falling, and looked down. A loose floorboard. I crouched, running my hand over it. It shifted under my touch just enough to feel wrong. "Weird," I muttered. Then I shrugged it off. Old houses creak, boards come loose. It happens. I changed into pajamas and slid into bed. The slanted ceiling gave the room a cabin-like vibe, but the silence was thick. Too thick. No pipes, no distant TV, not even the usual night noises of a house settling. Just silence, pressing in on me from every wall. I don't know when I finally fell asleep. Sometime in the night, I woke up. The room was pitch black. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. 3:12 a.m. That's when I heard it. A faint, rhythmic tapping. It came from below, through the floor. Steady, methodical, like someone lightly drumming their fingers on wood. Tap, 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 tap. I sat up, heart pounding, holding my breath. The sound stopped. I told myself it was nothing. Pipes, the house, my imagination, midnight paranoia. Eventually, I fell back into a restless sleep. The next morning, sunlight through the tiny attic window felt like a blessing. I chalked up the sounds to nerves and exhaustion. Adrian was already downstairs, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee and a crossword puzzle. "Sleep well?" he asked, not looking up. "Yeah," I lied. "The attic's great." He nodded. "Good. Let me know if you need anything." His politeness was so consistent it almost felt rehearsed. I spent most of the day out, just to get some distance from the house. That night, after another disturbingly pleasant dinner, I went back up to the attic. I was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't settle. The same floorboard caught my eye. This time, I didn't ignore it. I knelt down and pressed on the loose board. It lifted more easily than I expected, revealing a dark gap and a small, dust-covered box nestled inside. My pulse quickened as I pulled it out. The cardboard was worn and soft at the edges, like it had been opened many times before. Inside were VHS tapes, dozens of them, each one labeled in the same neat handwriting. "My beautiful family." The words sent a shiver down my spine. I stared at them for a long time, frozen, before finally turning to the old TV and VCR in the corner. My hands shook as I slid the first tape in and pressed play. The screen flickered with static before a clear image appeared. It was a home video. I knelt down and pressed on the loose board. It lifted more easily than I expected, revealing a dark gap and a small dust-covered box nestled inside. My pulse quickened as I pulled it out. The cardboard was worn and soft at the edges, like it had been opened many times before. Inside were VHS tapes, dozens of them, each one labeled in the same neat handwriting. "My beautiful family." The words sent a shiver down my spine. I stared at them for a long time, frozen, before finally turning to the old TV and VCR in the corner. My hands shook as I slid the first tape in and pressed play. The screen flickered with static, before a clear image appeared. It was a home video. Mara and the kids were sitting around the dining table, laughing, eating. The room looked bright, warm, normal. Noah threw a piece of bread at his sister, and she squealed. Mara scolded them playfully. Then the camera panned slowly. Adrian was behind it at first. Then he turned it toward himself, his pale blue eyes staring directly into the lens. "My beautiful family," he said softly. The scene cut. Now the room was darker. Same dining room, same table, but Mara was tied to a chair, hands bound behind her, her face streaked with tears. Her voice was hoarse as she begged, words tumbling over each other, broken and desperate. The camera didn't shake. Whoever held it knew exactly what they were doing. The frame was steady, centered on her. Then Adrian stepped into view. He moved slowly, almost calmly, as he set something down on the table next to her. The knife caught the light, a long, thin blade, too clean, too sharp. He said something to her, too quiet for me to make out. Then he started. I won't repeat every detail, but he cut into her like he'd done it before. There was nothing hurried or clumsy about it. His movements were precise. He placed one hand on her arm to steady it, then drew the blade along her skin. Her scream tore through the tiny attic, thin and distorted through the speakers. Blood welled up in a long, trembling line, then spilled over, running down to her fingers, dripping off her nails onto the floor. He kept going. The tape didn't cut. The camera didn't flinch. The sound of her ragged breathing, the soft, wet noises of the blade working through flesh, they built into a nightmare rhythm that made my stomach roll. At one point, he paused, looked straight into the camera, and smiled. Then he lifted something from the table, a piece of flesh, small, red, trembling slightly in his gloved fingers. He raised it to his mouth. My hand slammed on the stop button. The screen went black. My heart hammered so hard I thought I was going to pass out. I stumbled away from the TV, tripping over the rug, and collapsed in the opposite corner of the attic before I retched. The taste of dinner burned up my throat. I vomited until my body started to spasm, until there was nothing left but bitter acid. My hands pressed into the floor, fingers trembling, sweat cold on my neck. Something glinted in the mess. I froze. There, half smeared with bile, was a ring. I knew that ring. I'd seen it catch the sunlight 1,000 times when Mara waved from their porch. A large, brilliant diamond in the center, surrounded by a halo of tiny emeralds. The exact same design. The exact same ring. Mara's wedding ring. If this was her ring, then what had I just eaten? My throat closed. I couldn't even scream. The room spun as my mind tried to reject the answer forming in front of me. I staggered back toward the bed, legs shaking, grabbing the frame to keep from falling. My body felt hollow and heavy at the same time. I had to get out. Before I could move, I heard it. Footsteps on the stairs. Slow, heavy, deliberate. They stopped just outside the attic door. "You okay up there?" Adrian's voice drifted through the wood, calm and casual. the same voice he'd used over dinner when he'd offered me. My eyes flew to the TV. The tape was still out of its box on the floor. The others were scattered beside it, the hidden compartment wide open. The ring glittered dully in the puddle in the corner. Panic jolted through me. I lunged for the TV and hit the power button with trembling fingers, plunging the screen into darkness. I didn't have time to clean up the tapes. My brain screamed at me to put everything back, but my body refused to respond. I slid the attic door shut and locked it, then pressed my weight against it, trying to steady my breathing. "Yeah?" I called out, voice cracking. "Just tired." There was a pause, long enough for fear to wrap itself around my ribs and squeeze. Then the footsteps retreated. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. When the operator answered, words tumbled out in a frantic mess. "Please, send someone. My neighbor, he's done something terrible. I'm in his attic. There are tapes. He hurt his family. He's dangerous. Please, please hurry." "Stay where you are," the operator said firmly. "Officers are on their way. Can you secure yourself?" I stared at the lock. It suddenly felt extremely flimsy. "I'll try," I whispered. Every second stretched. The house creaked and groaned, each sound amplified in the suffocating silence. My mind spiraled. What if he knew? What if he'd heard the tape? What if he was just waiting at the bottom of the stairs? Then I heard it again. Footsteps. Closer this time. Faster. They stopped right outside. "You've been snooping," Adrian said quietly. His voice was different now. The warmth was gone, peeled away, leaving something flat and cold underneath. The door rattled violently. The whole frame shook as he shoved against it. "Open the door," he said. No charm, no smile, just a command. I stumbled back, my breath coming in sharp, broken gasps. A moment later, something thin and gleaming stabbed through the gap between the door and the frame, a knife blade. It scraped against the metal lock, sparks flaring for a second in the dim light. "Adrian, stop!" I yelled, my voice cracking. The lock twisted under the force. The wood around it splintered. Each impact was like a gunshot in the tiny room. With a deafening crack, the lock snapped. The door flew open, slamming into the wall. Adrian stood in the doorway. His pale blue eyes, once distant and kind, now burned with wild intensity. His face was tight, lips stretched into something that wasn't quite a smile. In his right hand, he held the knife. The blade was long and thin, stained with something dark and dried along the handle. Old reddish-brown smears sunk into the grooves. "So," he said, softly, stepping inside. "You figured it out." He scanned the room, the tapes on the floor, the open box, the lifted floorboard, the ring in the corner. "Doesn't matter now," he added. He lunged. I threw myself to the side, the knife slicing the air where my chest had been a second earlier. I grabbed the first thing my hand landed on, a heavy desk lamp, and swung it as hard as I could. The base of the lamp smashed into his shoulder with a dull thud. He staggered back, teeth clenched, but he didn't go down. He came at me again. We collided, crashing to the floor. The knife pressed against my throat, cold and unyielding. My arm shook as I fought to keep it away, muscles straining, fingers numb around his wrist. His face was only inches from mine, eyes wide and bright. "What was the food like?" he hissed, breath hot and sour. "Did you enjoy it?" The words punched the air out of my lungs. I could almost taste the dinner again, thick and heavy on my tongue. He pushed harder. The blade bit into my skin just enough to sting, a thin bead of warmth sliding along my neck. I twisted my body, kicking out with my knee, catching him in the ribs. He grunted, his grip loosening, just enough for the knife to slip from his fingers. It clattered across the floor between us. We both went for it. My hand brushed the handle, his fingers slammed down on mine, crushing them against the wood. Pain shot up my arm. Somewhere in the distance, growing louder, I heard sirens. Adrian pinned me down again, his weight heavy on my chest. He managed to grab the knife and brought it back up, raising it high. The sirens wailed closer. Tires screeched outside. The attic door exploded inward again, this time from the other side. "Drop the knife!" a voice roared. Uniforms filled the doorway, guns drawn, eyes locked on Adrian. But Adrian didn't move away. He didn't even flinch. He turned his head slowly, eyes blazing with something unhinged, and then lunged, this time at them. He swung the knife in wild, erratic arcs, a wordless scream tearing from his throat. The shots were deafening in the confined space. His body jerked violently, then collapsed onto the floor beside me. Blood spread quickly, a dark pool crawling across the wood, seeping into the cracks around the floorboards. For a moment, everything was quiet except for my ragged breathing. An officer knelt beside me. "You're safe now," he said. But I didn't feel safe. My eyes dragged over to Adrian's body. That's when I saw it. A handgun tucked neatly into his waistband. One of the officers noticed, too, and carefully pulled it out. "He had a gun," the officer muttered. "He could have used it on you at any time. Why didn't he?" The question hit me like ice water. Why didn't he? He had a gun. He could have ended it quickly. But he chose the knife, chose to get close, chose to push the blade against my skin, chose to talk, to savor it. He didn't just want me dead. He wanted me to feel every second of it. The next few hours blurred into flashing lights, questions, and the creeping cold of shock. They wrapped me in a blanket and led me downstairs. The house, once pristine and polished, now felt like what it always was, a crime scene. Adrian's body was carried out on a stretcher, a blood-soaked sheet covering him. Even with his face hidden, I could still see those eyes in my mind, the way they'd lit up when he asked how I'd liked the food. The police combed through the house. Later, a detective sat beside me on the curb, her face grim. "We found some disturbing things," she said softly. "Do you feel up to answering a few more questions?" I nodded, even though my whole body felt like it was made of glass. I told her everything: the tapes, the ring, the dinner, the attic, Adrian's attack. Every word felt like it weighed a ton. The news broke the next day. Respected doctor exposed as killer. Cannibal neighbor shocks small town. They didn't name me, but they didn't need to. Anyone close enough to know the streets could put the pieces together. What the police revealed was worse than anything I had imagined. In the room that had belonged to Adrian's daughter, they found hidden compartments under the bed and behind false panels in the walls. Inside were things that should never exist in a family home. Body parts, human remains, some wrapped like packages, some preserved in jars, some with clear teeth marks sunk into the flesh. A twisted collection of trophies. The remains were confirmed to be Mara and the kids. Tiny hands wrapped in cloth and tucked carefully away. Limbs stored in jars like specimens. Not just murder, obsession, control, cruelty on a level that was almost impossible to comprehend. Every new detail made my stomach twist. I couldn't stop thinking about his family recipes, about the taste of the meat, the tenderness, the flavor, and Mara's ring shining up at me from a pool of my own vomit. That meal had been her. Police told me to stay with family for a while. I didn't argue. My own house felt wrong now. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every gurgle of the pipes made my skin crawl. Therapy helped. A little. Enough for me to function. But some nights I wake up choking on phantom tastes or hearing Adrian's voice right in my ear. What was the food like? Did you enjoy it? The town struggled to move on. Adrian had been a pillar of the community. People had trusted him with their lives, their children, their secrets. The betrayal cut deeper than anyone wanted to admit. A few days after the chaos died down, my phone rang. It was the detective. "There's something else," she said. "It's related to your home." My chest tightened. "What is it?" "Your plumbing," she said. "We found signs of deliberate tampering. Tools, hair, fingerprints. His fingerprints in your basement." For a moment, I couldn't speak. "It wasn't an accident," she continued. "He caused the flooding. He wanted to force you out of your house and into his." The room spun around me. Every moment replayed in my head with sickening clarity. The perfect timing. The way he just happened to be there when I was hauling my bag to the car. His insistence that I stay with him. The over-the-top hospitality. The freshly prepared attic. None of it was spontaneity. It was all part of his plan. "Why?" I whispered. The detective hesitated. "We can't say for sure, but given everything else?" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Adrian had watched me, studied me, chosen me, sabotaged my house, cooked for me, all to pull me into his web. I thought of Mara, of Noah, of Lily, of what was left of them in that house, of what he'd done to their bodies after he was done with their lives. Was I supposed to be next? Was I meant to be another family recipe? The thought made my skin crawl. The air felt too thin. I gripped the edge of the table and tried not to pass out. It's been months now. The repairs on my house are done, but it still doesn't feel like home. Sometimes when I'm cooking, I'll glance at the cutting board and feel a wave of nausea. If I see a ring glint in the light, my stomach lurches. People still ask me about it. Friends, reporters, curious strangers who piece together that I was the neighbor in the story. They always want to know one thing. How did you survive? The truth? I don't know. Maybe luck? Maybe timing? Maybe the sirens reached the house 1 minute earlier than they could have. Or maybe some sick, twisted part of Adrian wanted an audience. Wanted someone to know the truth about what he really was. All I know is that I got out. But part of me is still in that attic, kneeling on the floor, staring at that ring in the puddle of vomit, hearing his voice on the tape, and asking myself the same question over and over again. If it was her ring, then what had I just eaten?